Living in the Past is a Turtle, Mysteries of Azeroth, and Everlook Broadcasting production. This is Living in the Past, your Everlook Broadcasting Company weekly show about all things Turtle, Mysteries of Azeroth. Today is Friday, April 12th, 2024, and I'm Dan, your host for the next hour. Happy Friday, once again, everyone on Turtle. We have plenty to talk about here today, so let's get right through the menu of what's going on this wonderful Friday. To start off in our first segment, we're going to have patch note discussion, as has become the norm. I do kind of like that. I like that, we are establishing a little more consistencies with the show. And talking about the patch notes, especially to start off with, feels right. We're also going to be talking about more nuanced server topics here in the first segment. Server transfers are a thing, and we're going to talk about that. And we're going to talk about repercussions to the server transfers. Specifically, economic instability that seems to have come from it. I will say I am not an economic expert, per se. I know how to play the auction house very well, but that's kind of the limit of my knowledge. I don't do a real good grand scope, economy-wise, so to speak, so I'm going to be referencing Vrograg a lot in that first segment. Second segment, we're going to be talking about some classic retail stuff going on. Plunderstorm and Cataclysm Classic, or Classicalism, as I call it. If you can spell that, if you can spell Classicalism correctly the first try, you get a cookie. Literally a word I made up this morning as I was putting my notes together. Because I was thinking because Cataclysm Classic sounds like you could just mash the two words together. And in my brain, they just became classicalism. It's classicalism. In my head, I'm going to call it classicalism. And then in our final segment, in our final topic, we're going to be talking about the Fallout Prime series, because that just happened. I just watched the first episode. No spoilers at all. Don't worry. No. No panicking. Do not panic basket here. No spoilers. But I will share some thoughts. Also, I mentioned Vrograg a minute ago. We are going to be giving a quick salute to Vrograg because he is the orc, and here is the news. And then a request that people have had since we started broadcasting here on Everlook is a way to listen to the radio without necessarily being in game. So we're going to talk about that as well. We do have some information on that. I can't share too many details because it is still in early discussions, but I feel like I want people to get a little bit hyped up over this. Because we've had the YouTube page, and the YouTube page is wonderful, but there isn't currently a way for you to just turn on the radio if you're not in game. So that might be changing here. So we're going to talk about that to close up shop here today. With that being said, though, let's go ahead and hop right into the patch notes. And the first thing most of you will probably notice is half of the patch notes are Sunnyglade. Sunnyglade received a huge revamp this week. And that might excite a lot of you. A lot of you are PvPers. So I'm just going to run through these real fast. Sunnyglade specific buffs can no longer be taken out of the battlefield and retained until they expire. Quests to defeat mini-bosses in Sunnyglade will now reset upon joining, allowing them to be completed in each game. increased the total health of faction bosses in Sunny Glade, introduced a notification sound when engaging the final boss in Sunny Glade, increased the honor awarded at the end of Sunny Glade. That's going to interest a lot of you. Special trinkets can now be looted from players defeated in Sunny Glade, and lowered the minimum number of players required to start Sunny Glade. That's all of them. But I think a lot of these are going to be welcome changes, and one or two of them are going to be not so welcome changes. But you get the idea. Huge changes for Sunny Glade happening with this patch on April 10th. Also, and in addition, we had some raid boss changes. The first one being Gothic in Naxxramas. The Gothic encounter will now be terminated if the number of players alive per side falls below 10 before Phase 1. Now, this is going to take a little bit of explaining, so here's what we're going to do. The Gothic encounter in Naxxramas, you have two platforms with two mini-bosses that you run up onto. They both do some bad stuff. You charge at them, you need to kill them. However, you also need to have a certain amount of players to get hit with debuffs after you jump to the main platform and engage Gothic himself. Which, by the way, is a giant amalgamation of dead women and children that the Scourge forged together with the power of those dead souls. Very creepy. Any hoozle. If too many players get smacked around by those mini-bosses before you actually jump to the main platform, the encounter will now disengage and reset, giving you the opportunity to just step back, res the dead, try again. This is a welcome change in my opinion, but I don't currently raid Nax on Turtle, so I could be wrong. But if I were running this, I would be happy about this change. I would be like, okay, this is going to mean a lot less nonsense, and everyone has to wipe and everyone has to die. We can just reset. We can just go ahead, reset. Now then, we also have a change with AQ20 and the Rajax encounter. Fun fact, fun fact, and this is not a pun in any way, but it was very easy to bug out the Rajax encounter in AQ20 because it's a raid full of bugs. Do you get it? Does everyone laugh? Everyone is laugh. Everyone laugh. Thank you. It is now impossible to bypass killing all the captains in the Rajax encounter in AQ20. So one of my favorite bugs, I'll say issues with the Rajax encounter was if you got lucky, you could just pull the captains manually one at a time. And you could just pull their group and then you'd be out of combat and you can drink and refresh yourselves before you pull the next group. Versus them automatically coming one at a time and keeping you in combat. I am hoping this is not the bug they fixed because it made the encounters so trivial. so just like, all right, we're just going to pull the next group. Sounds good. I assume this bug has been fixed at this point. It was random, but I assume it's been fixed. But now you actually cannot bypass any of the captains. You have to pull all the captains before you actually deal with Rajax in AQ20. RIP to my favorite bug ever. Yeah, we'll call it that. Alrighty, that is the majority of the patch notes. There's a few other things. There's a few other things, but I don't necessarily understand the impact of all of them. I know ferals with the Berserk aura. That's going to be big, but I don't play a feral, so I don't really understand it to the best of my abilities. And we need to talk about the economy, or rather, server transfers first. Server transfers first. So what's going on right now is you can now transfer characters from the European realms, or I should say realm, to the SEA realms. And there's 2 of them that you can transfer to. As far as I understand, gold and product, we'll say, does transfer with you. Guild does not. Which makes sense. That makes total sense. So, people are trying to process their inventories before they transfer over to the SEA realms. Whether that's stocking up on certain things that are expensive over there, or trying to dump certain products onto the economy, or onto the auction house, rather, and get rid of them before doing the transfer. And it's that's totally understandable. People want to transfer with the most advantage possible. People want to enter into the new realms with the most advantage possible. That makes total sense. Unfortunately, it's also causing a lot of economic instability. And I don't understand the nuances of this per se. However, the prices of certain products have either tanked or skyrocketed based off of this. And the best reference I can give on this, again, I'm entirely referencing Vrograg here because he knows his economy stuff much better than I do. He does his market watch every single week. He is brilliant. And he has all these different spreadsheets set up. It's wonderful. Eco. The EKO, one of the things that comes out of Winterspring that you can farm up. The price on, I believe, Frostmaul Eco, question mark? I think it was Frostmaul Eco, has skyrocketed. Almost artificial. It looks very artificial with how heavily it's spiked. But the fact of the matter is that the price of Frostmaul Eco went from, I believe, under a gold to maybe 3 or so gold per just in the last couple days because of people trying to buy it up before they transfer. Because you can get a very good speed buff, a haste buff rather, from Frostmaul Eco. And because of how low it was on Nordinar, a lot of the people who are transferring tried to buy up as much as they could before transferring, which makes, again, total sense. I would do it. I would absolutely do it. But the weird price impact from it's again, go and watch Vrograg Fish Slayer's news from this week. I believe it came out on the 9th. I think it came out on the 9th. But go ahead and watch it. He provides some very good diagrams of different price fluctuations that are already occurring because of transfers. Which I think is absolutely fascinating. Like I love this. I love this stuff so much. I don't necessarily have the great brain for it per se. Like I said, I know how to manipulate the auction house and prices, but I don't have a good grand scope for the economy. So the fact that Vrograg does all that work for us, greatly appreciated. Thank you, Vrograg Fish Slayer, News Orc. It sounded so awkward. What the hell am I doing? I know what I am doing is I'm sending us to our first break of the day. How about that? I'm feeling high energy kind of mood today. I want to share the energy here. So we're doing a lot of more, I'm going to say recent bands, but my concept of recent is if it's in the 2000s. I might be old. So we're going to open up this break with the We Didn't Start the Fire cover by Fall Out Boy, which came out last year. And then after that, Paralyzer by Finger 11, which is a little bit older. And then Take Me Out by Franz Ferdinand, which is also actually a little bit older, but new for me, kind of. It's not from the 80s, so it's new enough. I'll just say that right now. When we get back here, we're going to talk about Plunderstorm Classicalism, which is, again, as we review our notes, Cataclysm Classic, Classicalism. Just say it with me now, Classicalism. That and more coming up after the break right here on Living in the Past with myself, Dan. Don't go anywhere. Enjoy the music. We'll be back right after this. The musical tracks for this episode have been removed due to YouTube copyright. To listen to the full episodes with music, tune in to Everlook Broadcasting every Friday with the in-game radio widget. Welcome back to Living in the Past with myself, Dan. Happy to have you here on this April 12th, 2024. For our second segment here of the show, we're going to be talking about some, I'm going to say, retail features. So some retail WoW features. And normally you're used to hearing me complaining about all of that. I have never really had anything incredibly nice to say about retail, especially after Wrath, and even sometimes about Wrath. However, we're going to be talking about Classicalism here eventually, and okay, it's Cataclysm Classic, but I'm still calling it Classicalism because that's just the brain I have. But actually, to open here, I'm going to be talking about something I actually think is really great, which is Plunderstorm. So, for those that don't know, and this is going to take a little bit of background here, and that's fine, we have the time. I worked in PUBG esports for a while. I was operations, I was a director. I have been there and done that in a small section of the PUBG esports space. I do actually love, here's the odd part too, I do actually love those kinds of games. I do love those drop-in, loot, and fight kinds of games. Not only did I play PUBG quite a bit, but I played a lot of Hunt Showdown, for those of you who know what that is. I played a bit of Apex. I never really latched on to Apex, to be honest. There's been a few other games that in that genre I played. A lot of PUBG though. So it'll come as no surprise to anyone that actually I think Plunderstorm is a really good thing. It's been a lot of fun to watch. I haven't played it. I haven't kicked back on my retail subscription for a while, but or rather my subscription in general to World of Warcraft for a while, because any subscription has Plunderstorm open to them. But essentially it's like PUBG but World of Warcraft, where you drop in across a map, you go around and loot stuff, and then you kill players, and last person or last team standing wins. And you can queue up solo for it. You can queue up with, I believe, a couple friends now. I believe they opened it up to 3s. Originally it was only solo and 2s. But you loot spells and abilities, you defeat enemies to level up, and you get rewards for it. I know there is the Arathi Highlands map. I hope they include another map sometime soon. But there's so much that honestly is just good, simple fun with it. This was a bit of a surprise. They kind of launched it out of the blue. I'll say out of the blue. And you don't get to use any mods while going in. That's one thing that I'm like, I don't know about that one. But just to keep things fair, mods are all disabled when you go into the Plunder Storm mode. Which I will say a lot of people have complained about, but again, I don't hate it. I do not hate it. It's a real challenge when it comes to the streamlining process of how do you streamline World of Warcraft to a point where you can battle royale it? But it works, and it's actually a lot of fun. So you know what? I don't normally say this. I'm not. This is not normally me. Props to the Blizzard crew for making something that is just good, simple fun. You drop in, you kill some players, you get some loot, and then you run it all back and do it all over again. So you know what? Props there. Now with that out of the way, maybe something I'm not so happy about, which is the Classicalism or Cataclysm Classic. We just got a lot of information dropped about it. August 31st will be the launch date. And essentially, Wrath is going away and all is being evolved to Cataclysm Classic. Now, if I'm reading this correctly, this doesn't actually say when the pre-patch is happening. It just says there will be a Cataclysm pre-patch, pre-expansion patch, I'll say. But essentially, just like back in the day when it happened, Wrath is going away, the world is changing permanently, and we are going to Cataclysm mode, or Classicalism here. I don't have mixed feelings on this, I have negative feelings on this. And I'm going to try to keep this as focused and as reasonable as possible, but at the same time, okay, now I will say I do have mixed feelings. I don't have mixed feelings. I have mixed ways I want to talk about this. Because a lot of the reason that so many of us initially hopped on Nostalrius in the first place is because we wanted to go to a time that was before Cataclysm. Cataclysm, for many of us that really invested early in private vanilla servers, like it was that want to go back to a time before the world changed permanently for the worse. At least in our opinions. In our opinions. So to see Classic being pushed into Cataclysm, like I get Wrath. Obviously, I wasn't the biggest fan of Wrath. That's just me. Wrath was easily the most popular time for World of Warcraft. Classic needed to go to Wrath. Classic needed to see that evolution from vanilla to TBC to Wrath. That needed to happen. That kind of progression is what so many Classic players were invested in. I will say invested in, very much so. Cataclysm feels like a betrayal of that idea. At least for me. Because, again, the reason that we advocated so much for vanilla was because some of us really wanted to live in that time before the world changed. Now, to give people some context, the cataclysm in World of Warcraft terms, for those that don't know, the world was changed permanently, and it was updated to a model where it was, I'm going to say, different. A lot of terrain was updated. A lot of the world was updated. The world was also updated so you could fly mounts, have flying mounts in the open world. Which I'm going to be honest, that wasn't my favorite part of TBC either. I know it was vital. Like it was vital that flying mounts were a thing, and some of the game was designed around it. I don't like that. I was never a fan of that. This is going to sound old and grumpy, but I always thought the idea of flying mounts was something that was not good or well implemented at all. But that's just me. In short, and this is not in short because I've been going on for 10 minutes about this. The concept of the classicalism feels like a bit of a betrayal. And while some people that I know personally in the WoW community that are still active, I still talk with a few of the WoW radio folks. A few of them are excited for this. That's okay. I respect that. None of them were really on the vanilla train in the first place. None of them ever advocated for this. They only really participated after it hit TBC. So I do feel like this I'm trying to word this correctly because I don't want to be antagonistic towards anyone, but at the same time, I feel like this is kind of like the end of the concept of classic as something that many of us advocated for. And while I don't mean to be melodramatic, at the same time, it does kind of make me sad because a lot of us put so much into that advocacy, into that trying to inform why, yes, we did indeed want this. You remember the whole you think you do but you don't thing. A lot of us put so much effort into advocating why we wanted this, and it feels like that time period is over. And I don't think Blizzard is going to come back to our way of thinking on this. So, I mean, if you are going to enjoy the classicalism, more power to you. It certainly is, again, a fun time capsule. But even halfway through Wrath, I was starting to check out. And as I've mentioned before, not necessarily on this show, but in other pieces, a lot of the original sins of Wrath that I think led to an unfortunate time period in WoW's history were cemented in the Cataclysm. They were introduced in Wrath, but the Cataclysm made them permanent. If that makes sense. I'll leave it at that. I don't want to be too negative here. Again, if you're going to enjoy the classicalism, more power to you. I'll be here on Turtle. I'm very done with classic. I want to say this does feel a little bit like a betrayal, but it shouldn't, because we kind of all saw this coming. It was kind of inevitable. which is unfortunate, but again, just the direction things took. So again, if you're going to enjoy it, more power to you. I'm not. I have plenty of other WoW servers that I want to play on. With that being said, though, enough of that negativity. We're gonna move past that negativity. We're gonna get some more music going here, and then we're gonna come back with a few shout-outs, talking a little bit about the Fallout Prime series, which just launched, and then we're gonna go ahead and close up shop here for today. For our second break here, we're gonna open up with the Foo Fighters and The Pretender. No One Knows from Queens of the Stone Age, and Self-Esteem, an older track, but it checks out, from The Offspring. When we come back, our final segment here on Living in the Past, coming up right after this. The musical tracks for this episode have been removed due to YouTube copyright. To listen to the full episodes with music, tune in to Everlook Broadcasting every Friday with the in-game radio widget. Welcome back to our final segment of Living in the Past here with myself, Dan. It's good to have you here today. Closing up shop here for the evening. Thank you again for joining me here today. Just a few things I want to cover here in our final segment. First off, the Fallout Prime series just came out. I had the chance, the time, I'll say, to watch one episode. That was it. I work 3 different jobs, so, yeah. I had the time to watch one episode. But, and no spoilers, I really enjoyed it. It was very satisfying. It definitely leans into a lot of the Fallout 4/76 kind of vibes, but also there's a lot of that very grungy kind of brutal level of I'll say storytelling that's going on, and it's really satisfying. So if you're a fan of Fallout, at least based off of the first episode, strongly recommend. Between different activities this weekend and Lego, I should say. We got my roommate and I got the D&D Lego set. I'm going to be trying to watch the rest of those episodes here, because that first one especially was a doozy. It was long and it really flexed its muscles. This could be one of the best video game adaptations to film or TV yet. It's really good. It's really good. So make sure you go and check it out if you have time and if you have Prime. It's worth your hours, because oh my god, that first episode, I think it's like an hour and a half long. It is a long one. In addition, we need to give a huge shout out to one Vrograg Fish Slayer. I mentioned him in the beginning of the show and talked about his economy stuff. And again, recommend you go and view his material. But he, later this month, is coming up on his 1-year anniversary of being the orc and presenting the news over on his YouTube page. And while I am a little bit more of a newcomer to the community than him, I feel confident in saying we are all grateful that he is around. Not only does he do an exceptional job in putting the news together and talking about it, but also he has been, at least in the time that I've been around in the last year and a half or so, an absolute community staple. He has done so much good for the wider turtle community. So, whether it's just thanking him in World Chat or whispering him whenever you see him online, I want you all to thank him so much for the hard work and dedication he has put into what he does here. Not only is it a joy to have him around, but having his content, having him to work with, has really improved what I do and improved my experience. It's just an absolute joy to get to work with him. So whether it's over on his YouTube page or in game in some way or on Discord, give Rograg some big thanks and claps in the chat. And Rograg, from myself to you, congratulations on the 1 year on YouTube, doing the news. That's not easy to do. Regular weekly posts on YouTube at that level, that's not easy. I would challenge any of you to do it. I haven't updated my YouTube page in probably a month and a half. And again, that's because I work 3 jobs. It's a lot. And you need to dedicate a lot of time and effort to it. So claps in the chat for Rograg. Thank you for being here, buddy. Keep up the great work. And lastly, I wanted to hint at a potential update here at Everlook. The idea is being thrown around to provide an audio feed on the website for Everlook Broadcasting. The plan most likely, and again, this is not set in stone. This may not happen, but also I wanted to get a little hype for it if it does. The concept right now for it is to, if you are logged into the website, have access to an audio feed from this. I know a lot of people have been asking about this. I get regular pings from community members asking when an audio source is going to be available on the website, and this is finally one of those steps in possibly doing it. We want to make sure we do it right. And a lot of people are asking a lot of questions internally just to make sure it's happening correctly. But the process has begun, and in my opinion, I think we've really reached a point where it can happen safely and reasonably. Again, you'll have to be logged into the website to hear the audio feed, but in my opinion, that we've gotten past a lot of the bigger hurdles in this, and certainly internal discussions will continue. Maybe it doesn't happen. Maybe it actually doesn't happen. But I just want you all to know that more than anything else, we're trying. We're trying our best to make it happen in a way that is safe for Turtle. That doesn't put us in any danger. Because Lord knows, copyright is a thing. And DMCA is also a thing, so we want to just make sure things are done safely. But with that being said, we're going to go ahead and close up shop here. Thank you for taking the time to join me today. Our nostalgia continues even though today's broadcast is at an end, and I hope you enjoyed the show here today. A huge thank you to the Turtle developers, moderators, staff, and volunteers. Without the entire team's hard work and dedication, we wouldn't have this station or server group. An additional thank you to the audio engineers and creators here for the use of their soundtracks they've created, which we use for segment transitions and intro audio. If you'd like to find out more about what I do, I invite you to check out my not-so-often-updated YouTube page at youtube.com/@thedannation. In my series, Ancient Lore, a recapture of the spirit of my original podcast, The Ancient of Lore. Until next Friday, let's keep living in the past.